I hope you got some time and a snack because this one is going to be super long. The events that follow span from late 2019 to last week. As per the rules, all names are altered here. So, here's the backstory. My soon-to-be ex-wife is my high school sweetheart. We started dating in 1992 when we were both 17. We're both 45 now and have been together ever since. She's the only woman I've ever been with in my entire life. We married 5 years later at 22, fresh out of college. A year after that, we had our first of 2 children, both boys, 22 and 17 now. 23 years I gave to her. I built her a house, worked my ass off to give her the life she wanted. Sure, we had rough patches, but what marriage doesn't? Even in the worst of times, we found a way to pull through and come out the other side better, which made the discovery of her affair that much more jarring. Flashback to March 2020, when I first got the feeling something was off. For a good 2 months prior, we were in a funk. I was on the mend from reconstructive knee surgery after I blew out my ACL in fall 2019, but I was still lacking movement at the time. I only had about 55% range of motion on my knee. This took a toll on quite a lot in the house. I was out on workers' comp since I had been injured on the job, and I was unable to do my usual household duties. A lot got backed up, and my sons did what they could, but tasks that only I was capable of doing had to be put on the back burner, or my wife had to do them, which she wasn't pleased with. Things also crawled to a standstill in the bedroom between us. It had already slowed down prior to my injury, but in the state I was in at the time, it completely stopped. During these months, my wife, let's call her Sue, was spending more time hanging with coworkers after work, especially between November 2019 and March 2020. It became a regular occurrence. Naturally, I thought nothing of it. In the 23 years I'd been with her, I had never had any reason to worry or not trust her. She has her friends. I have mine. We have mutual friends too. I'd go hang out with mine all the time and there was never an issue. It was all above board. But around January of 2020, I noticed something odd. Sue started getting noticeably distant with me. Sure, we were in a funk, but she'd never deny me affection to that point. The usual hugs and kisses she'd give me came to a halt. Her phone was constantly attached to her hand, long before my suspicion grew. But she used to always share things with me, things she discovered on the web, DIY ideas, recipes on Pinterest, memes, all kinds of stuff. Now, she was being guarded about her phone. Even her interactions with me became more snippy, as if she couldn't be bothered. By March, COVID arrived and New York City locked down. Our chosen careers fell under the essential designation, so neither of us had to work from home. I had just been cleared to return to work after 5 months on the shelf, and I was eager to get back at it. 5 months of sitting on my ass rehabbing my knee and not being able to do any physical activities drove me nuts. For context, I'm an avid martial artist and usually hit the gym 4 days a week on top of all the home projects I usually tackle. Within a week or 2 of the lockdown, Sue alerts me that she'll have to start putting in extra hours again. I think nothing of this because of her field. I assumed it'd be every other day, but no, it was every day. And not just an hour or 2. She'd come home 3 or more hours later, go straight to the shower, spend a little time with me, a little time with our 17-year-old son, our 22-year-old lives with his girlfriend across town, and then go to bed. As I was able to support myself on my knee better, we started getting intimate again, but as you'd probably guess, she wasn't mentally or emotionally present for it, which I noticed quickly. By early April, the picture started becoming clearer to me. All the signs were pointing to the idea that she was having an affair. That's when I decided I needed to find answers. I scoured the internet for things I should be looking for, signs of infidelity in one's partner. Sure enough, Sue was ticking all the boxes. My search then advanced to, how do I find proof? I started with her social media, looking at her Facebook entries from months prior. It was mostly the usual pics of us and our sons, some pics of her with her friends, and more than a few pics of her nights out with coworkers. In these pics, it was a mixed bag, her closest friends from work and a couple of people I'd never met, but I saw one recurring thing in a number of these pics. One guy in every picture. He was uncomfortably close to her, his arm around her shoulder or his hand on her lower back. Way too close for a guy I'd never personally met. Needless to say, that put a sour taste in my mouth. But that wasn't the worst of it. No, the worst was the fact that this dude was apparently a friend of hers on Facebook and followers on there. So I went to look up his Facebook account, and wouldn't you know it? I'm blocked. Why the hell am I blocked from seeing this guy's account, but he's friends with her on Facebook? At that point, I wasn't even trying to deny it. I knew she was cheating on me with this guy. My mission was to find out for how long. Over the course of April and May, I started digging deeper. I never had any clue about the amount of information you could gather from phone, text, and email records until then. We had a family cell phone plan, so I was able to pull up quite a bit of data. My soon-to-be ex-wife's data history revealed that the two most frequent numbers she had interacted with from October 2019 to April 2020 were my own, and a number I'd never seen before. Take a wild guess whose number it was. A quick search on Google confirmed it. It was the dude from the photos. We'll call him P, because that's exactly what he is. At this point, the picture was even clearer, but many of their messages were disjointed, which meant she was deleting a lot of them. I knew she was cheating on me with this guy, but nothing in the data could serve as a smoking gun. I needed more evidence. That's when I told my best friend about what I had found. He asked me if I'd confronted her with what I had, and I said no, because I felt like it wasn't enough. That's when he told me about an app one could download to apparently spy on her communications in real time. I won't say the name of the app, as I'm not sure about the rules here, but I installed it, synced it up with my data plan, and waited. Within days, I finally saw it. A text string between the two of them talking about how much fun they had the previous night and making plans to do it again that weekend. Boom, gotcha. To say I was completely devastated would be an understatement. I guess that moment counts as my D-Day. For the next 2 days, I was just broken. I actively distanced myself from her. Those 2 days after D-Day, she was noticeably shaken. She tried to console me and ask what was wrong, but I'd brush it off and leave her presence. I couldn't even look at her. This woman, who I'd given 23 years of my life to, who I had given everything I could and more to as a husband, had stepped outside of our marriage for a guy just 5 years older than our eldest son. By the 3rd day, I wasn't even sad anymore. I was pissed. I contacted my buddy Oz to let him know my suspicion was confirmed. He asked me if I'd confronted her yet. My answer was no, and I told him I wanted payback. I didn't want to just divorce her. I wanted to destroy her. I wanted to leave her life in shambles and ruin her. It was going to take time to do so, but I devised a plan. In my readings on infidelity, I came across a quote that resonated with me. The enemy of infidelity is unpredictability. That would be the basis of my plan. I was going to make her life hell on wheels while secretly planning my exit strategy. No, my dear, you're about 8 months too late for that. PA loses his charm saying such lovely things as he doesn't love you the way I love you, and you're making a mistake. You can't just throw me away like this. That text chain would be the last they'd have until about 3 weeks ago, throughout the remainder of November into December. Sue is stuck in limbo. She's trying to gauge where my headspace is, and is still unable to tell if I'm actually being unfaithful. Meanwhile, P is steadily blowing her phone up daily, but she's not responding to him. I'd see her check her phone often, but quickly put it away. Meanwhile, phase 2 of the plan was now officially complete. The divorce papers were done. I'd found me a studio apartment in Co-op City, New Yorkers will know the area, and signed a 2-year lease on it. All of my money was in my personal account. I was ready to throw my final punch. So, we're now at Thanksgiving. My oldest and his GF were hosting a small gathering of our immediate families. The oldest and his GF, the GF's parents, she's an only child, myself, Sue, and our youngest. We have a great night. My oldest GF is studying to be a chef, and she did all the cooking herself. The girl can really cook, let me tell you. As I had to keep up appearances of nothing being wrong between Sue and I initiated affection with her several times that evening. Kisses on the cheek, cute little hugs, wrapping my arms around her shoulders from behind. The gestures didn't go unnoticed by her as she reveled in it. Bear in mind, this was the first time I touched this woman since I kissed the top of her head the night she confronted me in October. So, just about 2 months. Not going to lie, I felt disgusted doing it, but I had to. I couldn't risk the plan. Me being distant to her in the face of my boys, my oldest, GF, and her parents would have set off alarms. So my youngest decides he wants to stay over with his big bro for the night. So Sue and I head home. On the drive home, she thanks me for being so good to her and says, I don't know what you're going through, baby, but I'm here for you. I had to hold off bursting out in maniacal laughter again and responded saying, I know, I just need time. So, for the first time realistically since springtime, we had intimate time that night. I figured I may as well get some action before I delete her from my existence. I won't go into detail, but it wasn't love. When I was finished, she was a lump of flesh lying there trying to figure out the direction of the truck that ran her over. No cuddling or anything afterward. I just got up, showered, and went to sleep in my office, much to her confusion. Though I used a condom for the first time in 2 decades. I did. She was definitely perplexed by it, but she didn't ask questions. Sure as hell wasn't going raw in her knowing that she'd been doing so with P for months at that point. I wake up the next day and check my handy-dandy spy app. For the first time in weeks, she responded to PA. The dude went full narrative. He professed his love for her, Said she was wasting her time trying to rekindle a flame in me that died, that she'd been in a prison with me for 23 years and deserved to experience the love and affection of a man who would cherish her. Mind you, this dude is 27 to 5 years older than our oldest son, and he's that sprung on a 45-year-old married mother of two. What a great prize she chose to blow up our marriage and destroy the home we'd built for this guy. Pretty boy with a soft side, huh? She responded saying pretty much the same thing she said when last they talked, that she loves him and enjoyed their time together, but she can't lose me. I'm still the love of her life, but she'll always have a place for him in her heart, and that they can still be friends if he chooses. But the physical relationship between them is over. He begged her to see him one last time that week, and, yep, you guessed it, she said yes. One more for the road, right? Who am I to say anything? That's what I did to her the previous night. Of course, I added all of that to the archive I'd compiled. December 4th is when Phase 3, the final phase of Operation Shinobi Ghost, started. The divorce papers were in hand. My new place of residence was set up. Now I had to slowly start moving my stuff out of the house. But first, I had to break the news to my boys. I called my oldest to the house that Friday night, had them join me in my office, and laid everything on that table. Not the specifics, but that their mother had been cheating on me for over a year, and I was going to be filing for divorce soon. My 17-year-old was especially shaken up by this, because he himself had recently experienced his first taste of infidelity. Yep, his first GF had cheated on him just 4 months prior. Seeing his heart broken a second time at the idea that his own mother was capable of doing this hit him hard. My oldest took it a lot better and suggested taking his brother in to live with him until this blows over, to which I agreed. We packed up some of his stuff, and he asked me, was I going to be okay? I told him, yes, son. I'm going to be all right, and so are you. We're going to be all right. I promise. And then they were off. The hardest part was now over, and it was now time to arm the nukes. Over the next few weeks, day by day, Oz would help me get a little of my most sensitive stuff out of the house. Gave him a list of all of the definite stuff to grab while Sue and I were at work, and left him the spare key. This was all stuff Sue wouldn't notice was missing unless he told her it was gone. I'd also gotten a new phone and phone number, and told everyone who needed to know, Oz, Joey, my boys, Big Sis, and my mother, my new contact info. Meanwhile, I'm keeping up the ruse with Sue, and she's none the wiser, trickling bits and pieces of affection to her just to keep her off the trail. She's still in contact with PA, not to the extent that they've been prior, but there's still an emotional thing happening. The fog is faint, but it's still there. All the while, I gather everything, and I do mean everything, every bit of data I've archived since I started the plan, call logs, texts, pics, emails, everything. I started making printouts. Folks, I must have spent over $1,500 on staple supplies, printer ink, paper, binders, the works, and I cataloged everything in order from the beginning of the affair until that last bit, 2 weeks ago, December 16th. In the binders, 14 of them. I then put each one in a box and gift-wrapped each, addressing them to various people. My mother, my father, who passed 7 years ago, her parents, her 2 sisters, her brother, HR department did I forget to mention? He works for the same company, and there's an express rule against intercompany relationships because of the nature of what she does. Several of her friends, P's and P's parents, lugged all of those gifts to the post office and shipped them all out on December 16th, ETA for delivery, December 22nd to 24th. Perfect. So, we're now at Christmas Eve. Sue comes home around the usual time. No idea if she'd seen PA. I'd stopped tracking her on the app the 18th, figured I'd gotten all the mileage I needed from it. As per usual, she showers, hangs out with me a bit. I got to work on her. The final was upon me. At long last, the nuke I'd been arming since June was finally about to launch. In the middle of the night, I woke up, wrapped up one of the 3 remaining binders with the divorce papers taped to the inside cover, and set it on my side of the bed with a note that said Merry Christmas on it. Next to it, I left my old phone and the business card of my lawyer. I packed up the remainder of my most needed items, enough to fill 2 backpacks, and I left my home that I spent 23 years in for the last time. While she slept, I took one of the remaining 3 binders and did the same. This time, I taped the divorce notice to the inside cover and left it on my side of the bed. She'd had her L there a number of times, alongside my old phone, my lawyer's business card, and the shadow of a ghost who had quietly moved on. Over the next 4 days, her life completely imploded. Her family excommunicated her. Most of her friends, those who didn't know about the affair, ostracized her, and even my own mother took her to task, calling her the most scathing and vile things she could think of. Her lover was also placed on administrative leave and eventually fired. Last week, we had our divorce hearing and settled on a legal separation, which will eventually lead to an uncontested divorce. The terms included provisions for transitional income since she is now unemployed. I'm to pay $653 per month for utilities until she either finds work or up to 1 year from the finalization of the divorce, which is expected to be about 3 months from now. She gets to keep the house, her car, and her half of the shared assets. I get my share of the assets, my vehicles, my motorcycle, my boat, and my vacation cabin in the Poconos. After the hearing, we had one final exchange. She tried to explain away her infidelity and begged me to give her a second chance once the divorce was finalized. I, of course, said no, gave her some choice words, and walked away from her forever. This brings us to last night. Only my closest friends, 2 of my sons, my older sister, and my mother have my new contact info. I've completely blocked my soon-to-be ex-wife on all social media platforms, and she has had no way of reaching me since I left her on Christmas Eve. However, some of our mutual friends still do. Last night, I was hanging out in my apartment when I received a voice call notification from one of those friends, the one who hadn't abandoned her when I found out about the affair. She wasted no time when I answered, saying she went to check on Sue, the soon-to-be ex-wife, and found her passed out in the bedroom, foaming at the mouth with 2 empty bottles of pills next to her. She's in the ICU now, in critical but stable condition. The doctor said she'll likely pull through, though it's clear she won't be well after this. My friend begged me to come to the hospital. She said Sue's parents and 2 of her sisters were there, and they'd probably been notified after the hospital attempted to reach me, since Sue still had my old number listed as her emergency contact. I told her, flatly, no. Sue is no longer my problem, and it seems like she decided to take the easy way out rather than face the shame and agony of the marriage she destroyed. I told her friend that if Sue's family wanted to help her, they could step in. But as far as I'm concerned, there is no more Sue and I. There is no bus. I ended the call, feeling nothing. A few hours later, my sons called me, asking if I knew. I told them, yes, but I made it clear to both of them that if they wanted to be there for their mother, I wouldn't hold it against them. She is, after all, their mother. But as far as I'm concerned, I washed my hands of her. I couldn't care less what happens to her now. They were both a little taken aback by my response but respected my stance. Since then, the news of her suicide attempt has spread, and the same people who turned their backs on her are coming out of the woodwork, urging me to go see her, to be there for her in her time of need. Even though she betrayed me, they say I should still show compassion. I've been told her affair partner tried to visit her, but he wasn't allowed in because he wasn't family. I'm being bombarded with pressure from every angle to go to her. But honestly, I feel nothing for this woman anymore. I haven't for a long time. I checked out when I started getting my payback for her betrayal. I stand by the fact that I feel absolutely no sympathy for her. If anything, her actions make me despise her more. She's the one who is unfaithful. She's the one who, despite knowing she had a family, decided a fling with a man 5 years older than our oldest son was worth tearing our 23-year marriage apart. Now that she's facing the consequences of her own choices, she wants to play the victim. It's the most selfish thing she could do. And yet, I'm being made out to be the bad guy, the jaded ex-husband who won't sympathize with her. Most of her family has turned on me for this, though her father reached out to me recently and told me he respects my decision to stay away. The truth is, after 23 years and 2 children, I feel like I never really knew this woman. Not after everything she did. Yes, I know my abrupt exit may have contributed to her breakdown, but let's be honest. She made the choice to cheat. She made the choice to destroy the life we built together. Now, it's my turn to choose to put myself first. She made her bed, and now she can lie in it. I'll probably be vilified for my stance, but I really don't care. If you were in my shoes, you'd see things differently. Some of you will look up my post history and conclude that I'm the one who pushed her over the edge with my actions. Maybe I did. Maybe that makes me a heartless sociopath. But as Arthur Flex so famously said, you get what you deserve. I gave this woman half of my life, did everything I could to be the best husband I could be, and she threw it all away for selfish reasons. If that makes me the villain, so be it. I'll wear that label with pride. I'm done. She's out of my life for good. The day we signed the separation agreement was the day my obligation to her ended. If you're going to judge me for the way I feel, save it. After 23 years, 2 kids, and all that we shared, I can honestly say I don't care about her anymore. I have no sympathy for her, and I never will. Nina's at my place when she has her daughter, and I'm at hers when she's with Anna. Speaking of Anna, what a little treasure she is. I absolutely adore her, and it's clear she's taken a shining to me as well. I wish I could find the words to express how much Na has meant to me throughout all of this. If you haven't had the chance to read my previous entries, Na has been in love with me secretly since we were sophomores in high school. Back then, she saw herself as the ugly duckling and thought she had no chance with me. She watched me chase after, date, and ultimately marry Sue, knowing how she felt, but never saying a word. For over 25 years, she kept that secret, only revealing her feelings a week after my divorce hearing, when we met up for dinner and she laid everything out on the table. I consider myself incredibly fortunate to have her in my life now. We talk about the future all the time. Both of us have been burned by marriage, so we're not rushing into that again. But we've discussed a civil union, and while we'll likely wait a little longer before moving in that direction, it's pretty much a done deal between us that we're in it for the long haul. Now, as for Sue, there's not much to say. After the last time I spoke with her, following her suicide attempt, I went 100% no contact. I have no idea where she is or what she's doing, and honestly, I don't care to know. As far as I'm concerned, she's dead to me. Life goes on. It's March 2nd as I write this, which means just one more month until the finalization of the divorce. By this time next month, I'll be a free man, officially. I'm counting down the days. I can't wait to start the next chapter of my life. I also want to clarify something. I made a mistake when I said I was clinically diagnosed as a sociopath. I had misunderstood. My therapist mentioned that I display sociopathic tendencies when provoked, but that was just his professional observation, not a clinical diagnosis. Additionally, my oldest son, 22, has no true intention of harming PA. He said what he did out of anger. Update, the end, and farewell. April 13th, just 1 month ago, Sue officially became my ex-wife. My lawyer initially told me it would be finalized on the 18th, but due to NYC starting to open back up with the decline in COVID cases, it was pushed through a few days early. Jeff called me on April 12th, asked me to come see him the following day, and when I did, he handed me the finalization notice. He shook my hand, and then I hugged him, thanking him for all the work he'd done. On the way home, I kept replaying the last 24 years of my life. Every memory, every moment. When I stepped into my apartment, it finally hit me. I collapsed onto the floor, and all the emotions I'd been holding back came pouring out. I hadn't cried like that in ages, but it wasn't a sad cry. It felt like my soul had been set free after being held in the darkest abyss. That night, I called my 22-year-old son. I kept it brief, telling him that the divorce was finalized, and Sue and I were no longer married. He asked how I felt. I'm sure he could tell by my voice that I'd been crying. I told him I was fine. Next, my 17-year-old son got on the phone. We spoke for nearly 90 minutes. He and his fiancée have been doing a great job looking after him, and he's still in therapy like me. I won't get into the specifics of what we talked about, but I will say that there's still a lot of work to do, especially with his views on relationships. Later that night, Nina came over, like she always does. I told her the news. She wrapped her arms around me and held me tight, and yes, I cried again. Once I composed myself, she told me that no matter what, she would never betray me and loves me with all her heart. I know she means every word. I know I might catch some flack for saying this, but I don't regret the life I built with Sue. Despite everything she did, she gave me 2 strong sons. But it's clear to me now that I picked the wrong woman. Na has been there for me through so much these last few months. She's given me so much and asked for so little in return. All she asks is that I be there for her. I'm sure some might criticize me for moving on so quickly, but truth be told, I'd be a fool not to recognize the love that's been right in front of me all this time. Na is my hero. There's more to this story, though, some interesting developments. For one, PA actually reached out to me. Yes, he sent me a message here on Reddit. He saw my story when it blew up on YouTube and immediately recognized it. Before anyone asks, no, I won't reveal his username. I think the kids have suffered enough. His first move was to apologize. He gave me a rundown of what happened after I sent that binder to his mother. Long story short, he's been excommunicated from his family. His mother is a devout Catholic, and when she found out her son was responsible for destroying a marriage that had lasted nearly a quarter of a century, she kicked him out. Within a week, his employer received the binder and fired him. He's been couch surfing ever since, struggling to find another job. He said he wanted to reach out to me on social media, but admitted he was afraid. In his words, if I found him once, I could find him again. I could have gone all in and destroyed him, but I didn't. Instead, I asked when he last saw Sue, and he said it had been months. The last time they spoke, she told him to forget about her and move on. I remember her saying the same thing to me the last time I spoke to her. At least she wasn't lying about that. He was surprisingly forthcoming, and a lot of what he said matched the information I had gathered myself. I didn't engage much. I just asked questions, and he answered. After about 20 minutes, he apologized again, and that's when I hit him with this. You're a 27-year-old man who'll have to live with the fact that your own mother now loathes you for breaking up a marriage that lasted almost as long as you've been alive. I know you're messaging me because karma's eating at you, but I'm not going to give you closure. When I was 27, I was building a legacy. Right now, you're a homeless, jobless homewrecker. If you're smart, you'll learn from this. If you're not, you'll keep screwing up until you're my age, assuming you make it that far. I'd wish you luck, but you don't need luck. You need to get your life together. With that, I ended the conversation and blocked him. It wasn't the closure he was hoping for, but I think those words will haunt him enough. May 4th, 2021, a major milestone. Na is officially my fiancé. Over the past couple of months, we've had countless conversations about where we want things to go. Nina has made it crystal clear that she doesn't want anyone else but me. She wants my name, my commitment, and for me to adopt her daughter, Anna, as my own. As I've mentioned before, I absolutely adore Anna. She's 6 now, and her birthday was last month. She idolizes me. I'm the first father figure she's had since her biological dad disappeared when she was 4. Nina has always been cautious about introducing men into Anna's life, but with me, she sees someone who has the staying power and experience to be a solid father figure. As for Anna and 17, those two are inseparable. Their big brother/little sister dynamic is truly something special. I spoke to my therapist about it, and he said it's a great sign. 17 has really taken Anna under his wing and seems determined to protect her innocence, even though his own has been shattered. After weeks of discussing our future, we decided to go to City Hall last Monday to make it official. We got the marriage license in 24 hours, and the reveal was anticlimactic. We joked about how people had probably already guessed it. Some folks even joked about placing bets on when the expecting post would go up. We kept our relationship quiet for months, but at this point, everyone pretty much figured it out. Some will say it's too soon, and yes, I've said before that I'd never get married again. But that was before Nina came into my life. She's shown me love and devotion that I never received in my marriage to Sue. I'd be a fool not to recognize that. So now, I've made the decision to give her my name, and we're in the early stages of paperwork for me to adopt Anna. And as for Sue, I haven't spoken to her in nearly 4 months. The last time I saw her was when I visited the marital home. But through some mutual friends, what few we still have, I've gotten updates. I learned that she sold the house and took a job as a clerical assistant at a firm where she's getting by, though she's a shell of the person she once was. She keeps to herself, does her work, and doesn't socialize much. I'm certain she knows about Na and me. Some of our mutual friends have let it slip. As for me, I have no reason to speak to Sue again. 17 is almost a legal adult, and I'm finally free from that chapter of my life. It's over. My journey of betrayal, revenge, attempted suicide, and mental anguish is behind me. I'll field a few questions or comments, but ultimately I'm done. I'm fading back into the swamp with my new frog wife and her little tadpole. To all the thousands who have supported me, thank you. Being able to share my story has been humbling and healing. To the new friends I've made here on Reddit, I love you all. Keep it green and keep it classy. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit notification bell to stay updated.